Hello and welcome to the Buck Stops Here. I'm Ankita Mukherjee. A day after the Prime Minister lambasted the Akhilesh Yadav government by drawing a parallel between Hindu and Muslim festivals and referring to graveyards and burning ghats to say there should be no discrimination on the basis of religion, Akhilesh Yadav hit back today, dragging in actor Amitabh Bachchan in his capacity as brand ambassador of Gujarat, asking him not to do advertisements on donkeys. It didn't end there, with the Prime Minister referring to the BSP as Behenji Sampatti party and Mayawati calling Mr. Modi a negative Dalit man. We're asking tonight, has high decibels and low discourse completely hijacked real issues as the UP election now enters a dead heat? Is any party exempt from blame? And should the Election Commission now take so moto notice of such language?
गांव में अगर कब्रिस्तान बनता है तो गांव में स्मशान भी बनना चाहिए। अगर रमजान में बिजली मिलती है तो दिवाली में भी बिजली मिलनी चाहिए। अगर होली पे बिजली मिलती है तो ईद पर भी बिजली मिलनी चाहिए। भेदभाव नहीं होना चाहिए।
हम प्रधानमंत्री जी से कहेंगे, आप गंगा मैया को बहुत मानते हो, आप गंगा मैया के बेटा हो, आप गंगा मैया की कसम खाओ और बोलो समाजवादी पार्टी 24 घंटे बनारस में बिजली दे रही है कि नहीं दे रही है। एक गधे का ज्ञापन आता है, विज्ञापन। हम तो इस सदी के बड़े महानायक से कहेंगे कि अब आप गुजरात के गधों का प्रचार मत करिए। गुजरात के लोग तो गुजरात के गधों का भी प्रचार करवा रहे हैं और हम पे आरोप लगा रहे हैं कि हमने कब्रिस्तान और केवल उनके लिए काम किया है।
बीएसपी का नाम ही बदल गया है। अब वो बहुजन बहनजी बन गया और पूरी पार्टी बहनजी संपत्ति पार्टी बन गई।
नरेंद्र का मतलब होता है नेगेटिव, दामोदर दास का मतलब होता है दलित और मोदी का मतलब होता है मैन। ही इज नेगेटिव दलित मैन।
Joining us tonight on our discussion, Madhukar Jaitley, member of Legislative Assembly of UP, the upper house, joining us tonight on behalf of the Samajwadi Party. From the BJP, we're joined by National Spokesperson Sampatti, Zafar Sareshwala, Chancellor of Maulana Azad National Urdu University, joining us from Mumbai. Sachin Pilot, Senior Leader of the Congress, also with us tonight. But Madhukar Jaitley, I want to begin with you tonight. Does it behove a Chief Minister of a state to make this kind of analogy or use such language that could be interpreted as referring to the Prime Minister of the country? Why has the political discourse now descended to this level? Should this election not have been about Akhilesh Yadav's governance record? Isn't that the message he should have stayed with?
You see, Ankita, I'm glad you asked this question. Mr. Akhilesh Yadav was referring to the Gujarat tourism advertisement which was being done by the actor, and in that advertisement he was promoting the Gujarat tourism, one of those sanctuaries which are about 5,000 kilometer stretch.
Madhukar Jaitley, may I just refer to the exact words used by Akhilesh Yadav? He said Gujarat's people are doing campaigns for donkeys and then they accuse me of working only for Kabristans. Now, Akhilesh Yadav made that connection. I'm not making that connection, Mr. Jaitley.
You see, it was only in reference to what the Prime Minister spoke yesterday when he spoke about what should have not been spoken, of dividing the people of the state of UP, where the Prime Minister represents the entire country and not the limited people of those castes to which he was referring. My only request is to the Election Commission that they should immediately take suo motu cognizance of this fact and not sit in their ivory towers. And
how is this not double standard, sir?
No.
So then why should they not take? Why should they not take notice of what Akhilesh Yadav has said?
Because Akhilesh Yadav never violated any code of conduct. When Akhilesh Yadav never did that, while as the Prime Minister attracted the religious sentiments and tried to secure votes by enhancing the religious sentiments of those people. So it clearly violates the code of conduct, violation of Article 3 of the Code of Conduct. Therefore,
Sampatti
they
Patra,
should immediately take
Sampatti
notice.
Patra, I
And
want you to
receive the notice.
respond to
We are
this.
welcoming the notice. We don't hesitate in receiving that notice.
Sampatti Patra, I want you to respond to this. Regardless of what Akhilesh Yadav has said today, his detractors and indeed the opposition in UP is saying that even though while you may say that the Prime Minister was saying there shouldn't be any discrimination at all, why did he bring in these religious references? And by doing so, he used a language of divisiveness.
I'll come to this also, but let me first condemn as to what Mr. Akhilesh Yadav has said for the Prime Minister of the country, not because the Prime Minister belongs to my party, but because he's the Prime Minister of the country. And secondly, what Mr. Chaudhary, who is not just the spokesperson of Samajwadi Party, but a minister in the cabinet of Mr. Akhilesh Yadav, who went to the extent of deeming the Prime Minister and Mr. Amit Shah as terrorists. I mean, I'm absolutely appalled that such kind of words can be used for the Indian Prime Minister, which even enemy states would refrain from using for any Prime Minister. I'm absolutely appalled by this. Now coming to the issue of what the Prime Minister spoke. As far as the Prime Minister is concerned, he spoke on a statistical issue and he did not mention one religion. He spoke that if electricity has to be given during Eid, it has to be given during Holi. If it is given during some other Muslim festival, it has to be given during Diwali. So he has balanced both. He talked about non-discrimination and there are data suggesting that there is discrimination, and that's why I say this is statistical. I have a letter from the Rural Electrification Corporation Limited, REC, which in fact undertook a study in Uttar Pradesh. It is an independent body. It took a study along with some agents of Uttar Pradesh government as well, and the first finding in this fact-finding report is, I quote, discrimination on religious grounds while implementation of the Deen Dayal Upadhyay Gram Jyoti Yojana scheme.
I would like the Samajwadi Party to respond to this. Madhukar Jetli.
Ankita, it is Mr. Akhilesh Yadav today very categorically replied to the statement of the Prime Minister about the electricity remark that that he had provided electricity 24 hours to all the religious sites of the state, of all the religious sites, irrespective of any discrimination. So bringing this kind of a report is only misleading the people of the state, whereas the sanctity of this report has to be verified first.
Right.
Because
Such
the electricity when it is let me complete my point.
Yes.
When the electricity is distributed from any generation point to any area of the state or the city, it is not possible to discriminate the houses which are of the Hindus or the Muslims or any other caste. So therefore, this is a highly
you should read the report to see what the report has said. If you don't have, I will read the report for you as to how they distinguished, as to how the discrimination was done is given in detail in the
This
report.
report aside, we're talking about the terms of reference, the language being used. Sachin Pilot, the Congress
Exactly.
also moving the Election Commission against the Prime Minister's comments. But isn't Akhilesh Yadav, your ally in UP, now guilty of utterly lowering the discourse as well? Would you complain about him to the EC?
I don't think the Congress party has gone to the EC to complain about anything. But I think the larger issue that we've discussed this evening is whether people who are holding constitutional positions should not be cognizant of the fact that they're occupying that high office, or should they get into the rhetoric of really coming down to the lowest level of debate. I think a certain amount of statesmanship is required by people who the whole country is looking upon. I don't want to go into a debate of who said what, but generally speaking, this election should be about governance. If you talk about electricity, why should not you say that electricity should be given to everybody 24 hours a day? Why bring religion into it? Why bring religious holidays or festivals into it? I think there's an undertone which is very obvious. I don't think it was a statement made in ignorance. It was very specifically targeted to do something during the election process that is going on. I don't think anybody, especially people, forget political leaders, but people who are holding office ought not to use language which it really is unbecoming of people who have taken oath under the Constitution. I think it reflects very poorly on our systems and on democracy, and more importantly on young minds. What are we setting an example for? I mean, when people watch this on television,
and Sampatti, I want
what
you
are they taking away? Elections will come and go.
Yes, Sampatti, I want you to respond to this. He is, after all, the Prime Minister. Shouldn't he, like Caesar's wife, be above any sort of comment that can even be interpreted as being vaguely communal?
See, in fact, Sachin Pilot is a very erudite speaker. So, in a way, he skirted the question. Now, I'll answer the question. Well, yes, he's the Prime Minister today. Yesterday, when he was not the Prime Minister, one of the first barbs against him came from Sonia Gandhi ji, who uttered the phrase, Maut ka Saudagar. And what was the result? The result was victory of Mr. Narendra Modi, because people of this country do not accept such kind of barbs. The second barb was by Sonia Gandhi again. It was Zehar ki kheti. And the third was by Rahul Gandhi, that was by Khoon ki dalali. We have seen what was the result after Zehar ki kheti also in 2014. And I'm sure with such kind of barbs, both by Rahul Gandhi and Akhilesh Yadav, today Akhilesh Yadav calling the Prime Minister donkey and terrorist, will only
Akhilesh Yadav did not. Samit Patra, someone from the Samajwadi Party may have.
Referring to the Gujarat tourism sanctuary.
Not someone, a minister, a cabinet minister from Samajwadi Party and the chief spokesperson of Samajwadi Party.
Akhilesh Yadav. Akhilesh Yadav.
So naturally it shows that frustration is written large on the face of the Samajwadi Party and the Congress dispensation. But Mr. Jaitley, can I just complete? But on a serious note, Ankita, let me tell you, it is not just spewing venom against Mr. Narendra Modi since long. Remember, Ishrat Jahan and the likes of her had come to murder Mr. Modi, and there is a political dispensation, a political discourse which even supports Ishrat Jahan and the likes, because they have this kind of hatred for Mr. Modi that they can go to any extent to ooze this hatred for the Prime Minister. So it is but expected that donkey and terrorist are just benign words by that comparison as to what they can do if they are given a free hand.
Madhukar Jaitley, do come in on this, and I'd like Sachin Pilot to respond as well. Why has the discourse gone down to such levels, whether it is the Samajwadi Party leader that Samit Patra refers to, and we won't even deign to repeat his comments on this program tonight, or for that matter, this analogy that is now being bandied about where this advertisement was talked about. Is this at all an indication of frayed nerves? After all, 3 phases of polling are over, but 4 left to go. Clearly, there seems to be a dead heat in Uttar Pradesh. Is this the first sign of nervousness when everything stops being about development or the Yuva Piri and starts becoming a personal comment or about caste and religion?
You see, Ankita, Akhilesh Yadav in all his campaigns so far has only tried to project the development that has happened in the state of UP. And you must have seen even in the Prime Minister's speech, he always criticized the development work which he has spoken about, and he has spoken anything about development of the state in the last 5 years. The Prime Minister has been very critical about that. Now, in response to whatever has happened and whatever the Prime Minister spoke in Fatehpur yesterday, it is a fact that the Prime Minister does not belong to the limited population of the country. He cannot get away with the responsibility that he only belongs to a particular class. He cannot divide the people of the state. The people of the state have been so far very wise that they have not gone and acted on some divisive statements of any politician. But the Prime Minister tried to instigate those people. And the fact is that only today, when he spoke about the electricity part, the Chief Minister spoke and clarified that even in his own parliamentary constituency, the electricity was being provided despite giving any discrimination to any caste, color and creed.
Okay.
So therefore, you are trying to deliberately paint this fact that the Chief Minister spoke. The Chief Minister only spoke in response to what the Prime Minister spoke twice and thrice before. And if you look at the Prime Minister's statements,
and if you look at the Prime Minister's
statements, if you look at the Prime Minister's rallies, the Prime Minister has always been criticizing the development model of the state. So he cannot do whatever he wants, and he cannot get away with whatever. Some kind of a response will have to be given to the Prime Minister.
Samit has a response to that. Yes.
First, let me read out what the Prime Minister said. This is absolutely essential when you have such kind of allegations that the Prime Minister was invoking some kind of religious sentiment over here. I quote, अगर रमजान में बिजली मिलती है तो दिवाली में भी मिलनी चाहिए, अगर होली में बिजली मिलती है तो ईद पर भी बिजली मिलनी चाहिए, भेदभाव नहीं होना चाहिए. So he speaks in a way that balances both the religion. He speaks that there should be no discrimination, which is
Sampatti
central to
Bachchan,
Article
I think
14
the
of the
point
Indian
that's being made
Constitution.
is
No
why use
discrimination.
those religious references at all? Why not say that there ought not to be discrimination?
Because that's
on the
what is
basis of
happening in
anything?
Uttar Pradesh.
The
But
state
that does not,
government
just a
of
second,
Uttar Pradesh
Ankita, let me
even
complete in
provide
10
electricity even in
seconds.
Christmas.
Well, yes, if you
The
want to
state
debate
government
any
of Uttar
issue
Pradesh
academically,
also provides-
if Akhilesh Yadav had to refute this charge academically, he had every right in a democracy to refute that. That's what democracy is. But calling donkeys, is this the way to refute? Calling terrorists, because the spokesperson who was
right.
holding a press conference was holding a press conference to negate
You see,
this very
Ankita, the
view.
Chief
And the
Minister
word
of
that
the
he used
state
for the
said
Prime
that we
Minister
do
was
not
terrorist.
discriminate.
He could have thrown data, he
Okay.
could have thrown statistics, he could
Okay.
have given his papers to prove us wrong. But not doing that and calling him a terrorist is what is, I would call, abysmal low of Indian polity at the present time.
Right. Sachin Pilot, again, to go back to your point about constitutional figures having to respect a certain level of discourse in this country. If that is true of the Prime Minister, shouldn't it be equally true of the Chief Minister of Uttar Pradesh?
Well, absolutely, but I think the fact that the Prime Minister should have talked about how 73 of the 80 Lok Sabha MPs are from the BJP. What has the government of India done in the last almost 3 years in Uttar Pradesh? Only 3% of the crop that is grown in UP is actually procured by government of India. Rest is just left to fend for itself. As opposed to focusing on those developmental issues and talking about electricity 24/7, 365 days a year, as opposed to saying that, he chose to speak about Diwali, Holi, Eid, Ramzan, which I think had an undertone of sort of divisive politics, which was I think unexpected. But let me tell you this: you can the BJP president, the Congress spokesperson, all of us on television sets can say whatever we want, but the Prime Minister of India is a different category of individuals. I think they have to lead by example. You cannot say that CM said this or he said that. And quite frankly, what Akhilesh Yadav said today in the speech, I don't think it had any sort of communal tones. He talked about an ad, etc. But look at what the BJP says, go to Pakistan. Why is the Prime Minister lowering himself down to, let's say, Vinay Katiyar or Yogi Adityanath? Those are people who are so-called the fringe elements and not the mainstream. But this sort of language, I think, argues very negative impacts for our democracy. And I hope this stops right now and doesn't go on any further.
Samit, quick response to that, and I must bring Zafar Sareshwala into this as well.
Yeah, sorry, I'm keeping Zafar Sareshwala from coming into the debate. I'll just take 10 seconds. See, raincoat can be objectionable. Raincoat was so objectionable that everything was put on hold, even the parliament was put on hold. But donkeys and terrorists, these are acceptable. This is height of hypocrisy, and please don't consider people of India as fools. People of India can look into a
unfortunately,
design,
our politicians have lowered the discourse, and when we talk about this, we lower our discourse as well on this debate. Zafar Sareshwala, as a proud Gujarati, do you feel that Akhilesh Yadav, what he said today about the people of Gujarat and the promotion of donkeys, it's been talked about as a slur on the entire state. Now, do you feel this is an unnecessary controversy, a storm in a teacup, and should an election in UP just not have to go into any of this?
Ankita, as you said, the discourse has been lowered by the politicians. So I am only non-politician in your, debate. So now let me, have my way of talking. At least give me some time. This whole controversy is needless, because if you take what the Prime Minister said, I mean, initially what it was reported in the media or on Twitter, etc., was that he had mentioned only about, Diwali and Eid. But when I received a phone call from your channel, I heard his whole speech. So when I heard that whole speech, I didn't find anything objectionable. He was talking that equal opportunity, equality should be there. मतलब भेदभाव नहीं होना चाहिए. He mentioned about Eid, he mentioned about Holi, he mentioned about
Mr. Sareshwala, by now, I think that debate has been put to rest. We all know that. Yes, we know what the Prime Minister said.
Yeah. Listen to me. Yeah. Now, about the discourse, the lowering level of discourse, Ankita, it is nothing new. I mean, at least I have been observing elections in the country for last 15 years. At the time of election and very near to the voting, the level goes abysmal low. I mean, we have seen in Gujarat in 2007.
So you're saying this is not just something that's true of
so
Uttar Pradesh alone It's a question of election after election where this happens.
No.
Sampatti Patra, I do want...
I mean,
yes.
And now, the important point. Just give me 10 seconds.
Yes.
10 seconds. But the voter is very smart. The voter will show that who's going to change his life tomorrow.
All
who's
right.
going to give him jobs, who's going to give him good electricity, roads. So he's going to only decide who's going to change his life for the better. So voter is very smart. Politicians
All right. The
may
voter
say
is not going to
anything what they
take
like.
Is not going to be taken in even if the
Maybe
discourse
even the
plumbs
discourse
these
will go
depths.
worse, but it will be decided by the voter.
All right. Sampatti Patra, I want to take last comments from everyone now. Do you feel that the Election Commission should take so moto notice perhaps of all the kind of statements that we are hearing in this election? Or should it indeed wait for complaints from various parties, which it also seems to be getting rather a lot of?
See, the Election Commission of India is a body which in fact is appreciated not just in India but globally. So I, as a small spokesperson of a party, I as a small worker of a party, am no one to advise the Election Commission. The Election Commission will act in the best possible interest of holding free and fair elections. But I am appalled today as a young politician, and I in fact also agree to the fact that Sachin Pilot, also a young politician, people like us who are young, we should reject such kind of statement from a so-called young chief minister. Mr. Akhilesh Yadav, who became the chief minister, claiming that he is a young man and he would transform Uttar Pradesh, not just failed on the count of transforming Uttar Pradesh, but today coming down to this level as using donkey for the prime minister is unpardonable.
Madhukar Jaitley, should the Election Commission take note of both what the chief minister has said as well as the prime minister has said of its own accord?
You see, Ankita, if the election discourse needs to be stopped and upgraded a little bit, some action needs to be taken, because the BJP spokesperson just now said that he feels to be a little afraid of what he wants to get the political discourse corrected in the future. The Election Commission is the only watchdog which can take an action. If there is anything wrong, it can correct the discourse, and without correcting the discourse in future also, there will be such incidents that will happen. And in order to stop the leaders, whether it is the Prime Minister or any leader of any political party, because the Chief Minister of the state only referred to the Gujarat tourism issue and nothing beyond that, and he was not even attracting any code of conduct.
Now there will be alternative views on that, but Sachin Pilot, the last words on the show to you tonight. Does the EC have a role to play here?
Well, before I say that, Samit, I must break your fallacies. You and I are no longer young. Pushing 40 is hardly young in this country, where the average age is 26.
No, if Rahul Gandhi is young, you would agree with me that Rahul Gandhi is still young. If he's young, we are also young.
Well, I don't know about anybody else, but you and I certainly don't qualify to be young anymore, first of all. Second of all, the Election Commission, I think, has a lot of credibility. But the only way we can do this is not by expecting the EC to act. We have to act ourselves. And people who hold the highest office in the land today must lead by example and not wait for the EC to course correct the discourse in our country. The people of India, the voters, expect a lot better than what we're doing right now. And like I said, the higher you are in the hierarchy, the more responsible you have to be. What the BJP leader says means nothing to me. But when the Prime Minister says something, it certainly means a lot to me. So therefore, we have to lead by example and not wait for the EC to then slap on our wrists and make sure that we say the right thing. Elections will come and go, but what we say will be remembered for a long time.
All right, we'll leave it at that tonight. Sachin Pilot, Madhukar Jaitley, Sampatti Patra, Zafar Sareshwala, thank you all for joining us on this discussion. We'll leave you with an excerpt from NDTV's Battleground Uttar Pradesh. This was Akhilesh Yadav in response to Pranay Roy and Shekhar Gupta when asked about these controversial comments.
हम तो कहते हैं ना, खाएं गंगा की कसम कि मैंने काशी में 24 घंटे बिजली नहीं दी, और अगर उन्होंने दी हो तो मुझे बताएं कि उन्होंने दी है बिजली।
और आप गंगा की कसम खा के कहते हैं कि आपने सबको दी है।
मैं कह रहा हूँ गंगा मैया की कसम, जितना बिजली का सुधार हमने किया है आजादी के बाद किसी सरकार ने नहीं किया होगा। हम तो प्रधानमंत्री जी से कहते हैं गंगा मैया माने हैं, तो गंगा मैया की कसम खाओ कि समाजवादियों ने 24 घंटे काशी में बिजली दी है कि नहीं दी है। अगर प्रधानमंत्री जी कुछ भी हमसे पूछना चाहें, मैं तैयार हूँ उनसे बात करने के लिए। वाद विवाद करना चाहेंगे तो मैं तैयार हूँ। उत्तर प्रदेश के विकास के लिए कोई भी बहस करेगा, मैं उसके लिए तैयार हूँ, क्योंकि कम से कम हमें अपने काम पे भरोसा है, और काम की वजह से ही कम ये हिम्मत तो हम जुटा ले रहे हैं कि काम हमारा बोलता है।